In this episode, let's talk about audio gear that I reviewed at least a year or earlier ago and what my impressions are now after that time. Now, just quickly before we get started, my post-processing dialogue audio class is almost ready. It will be launched in the next 7 days or so. If you are interested, please go over to school.learnlightandsound.com. That link is down below. Get yourself signed up for free, and you'll be notified when it's released, and you'll receive a discount. Now, over the years, I've reviewed a fair number of microphones, recorders, things of that nature, and reviews are really good in a lot of ways because it's a hands-on look at, a piece of gear, but what you don't necessarily get in a relatively short-term review is how well the piece of gear holds up over time, and perhaps even more importantly, if given a choice between that piece of gear and another equivalent piece of gear, which one do you choose? So my goal here is that really kind of just looking back and taking another look at some of that gear that I've reviewed and telling you my impressions now after using it for a longer period of time, and also kind of explaining how well it's held up over time. First, let's talk about microphones, and in particular, in this case, let's talk about camera top shotgun microphones. These are type of microphones that will hook into cold shoe or hot shoe on top of your camera and record directly into your camera. I have several of these available to me. I have, I believe, 5 of them at last count. And the one that I choose consistently when I need that type of a microphone, which is not a lot, but every once in a while, is the Rode VideoMic Pro. This is the new version that was released in 2015. It has the lavalier mount, which is a suspension mount. It is just a solid microphone. It sounds good. It can also sound really great, especially if you get it boomed in nice and close, just over your talon if you're doing a talking head type of thing like this. But I also use it when my daughter has a concert, for example. I'll pull it out in those circumstances. Or if I'm going to be just sort of running and gunning and not necessarily recording dialogue, but more just sort of ambiance and things of that nature. So Rode VideoMic Pro has worked out really nicely for that. Now, if we're talking about XLR-based shotgun microphones, my 2 favorite right now are probably the Rode NTG2 and the Rode NTG4 Plus. If I could only choose one, I would probably choose the Rode NTG2. Let me explain. The Rode NTG4 Plus is actually newer. It has an inbuilt battery. It has a redesigned capsule. Technically, the noise spec is better, the self-noise. And it's, in theory, it should be a much better microphone. And indeed, I think it is in a couple of different ways. Number one, if you need to adapt it from XLR to 3.5 millimeter, that actually works. With the NTG2, that doesn't generally work. You need quite a bit of gain for the NTG2. It's nice to have that inbuilt battery. The battery lasts a good long time. The build quality is fantastic, just like all of Rode's products that I've used. But the downside is I don't love the sound of that microphone. It is pretty natural sounding, but I really like the sound of the NTG2 better. In my world, the ideal microphone from Rode would be a combination of the capsule, or the sound at least, from the NTG2 with the body and the inbuilt battery of the NTG4 Plus. So build quality-wise, they've both held up perfectly. No problems whatsoever. They've been incredibly durable. They come with all the things you need, a storage pouch, the foam cover, so on and so forth. So love both of those mics. If I'm in a pinch and it's just down to sound, I'll choose the NTG2. If I am recording dialogue indoors, my favorite microphone is the Technica AT4053b. Now, I realize this one's a little bit more expensive for enthusiasts, so it's out of reach of many enthusiasts, but it's a fantastic microphone. It works great on my pro jobs, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. However, if I couldn't afford that, the microphone that I would probably use the most is the Rode NT5, which is a small diaphragm condenser microphone with a cardioid pickup pattern. In my tests, it sounds pretty good. It not quite as good as the Technica, but very close. And it doesn't have quite as tight a pickup pattern, but it's good enough for most indoor dialogue. And more importantly, it's about 1/3 the price. Now, when it comes to lavalier microphones, if I'm going to be recording to my phone as the recorder, there are lots of them that I have. I have tons of them. I'm not even sure how many I have, but the one that I generally will go pick up is the Rode smartLav Plus. Is it the best sounding one? That's a tough call. None of them are amazing. And the Rode, I wouldn't say necessarily is the best, but it is the most convenient from the standpoint that there's no battery. It goes straight into the recorder. I really like the sound of the Aputure A.lav, which is, I think, the best sounding one and the least noisy of the lavalier microphones in the kind of less than $100 range, and actually in this case less than about $40 range. But the problem with the A.lav that I have is that little battery pack, there are too many connectors and things can get jostled, and that'll create crackling noises, and you have to keep that battery pack charged up. If you can live with that, I think the A.lav is a great buy, but usually I'll grab the smartLav Plus. Now, if I'm on a tight budget and I need a lavalier microphone that can record to my audio recorder, like a Zoom H1, or to a phone, they have different versions actually now from when I actually reviewed it, or straight to camera, my favorite is probably the JK Mic J044. It's a little less than $30 US. It is nothing special. All it comes with is a little alligator clip to clip it to your lapel, and that's pretty much it. I think some people reported it now ships with a foam cover on it. Your mileage may vary on that, but in any case, in terms of durability, it's held up just fine. In terms of sound, it's pretty good. It's cheap and it's reliable. It's one of the better sounding ones that I've used. Now, my favorite lavalier microphone is the Sanken COS 11D. This one is an expensive one. It's almost $400 US, but it's the same one that a lot of the pros are using, and I can see why. It definitely sounds good. I actually prefer it over the Countryman B6, which I also reviewed last year. The Countryman is a lot smaller, easier to hide, but the Sanken to me just sounds a little bit better, and I prefer the sound of it. So yeah, it's expensive, probably not one that's in reach of everyone, but a very solid mic, and I definitely see why a lot of the pros choose that one. Now, for voiceover mics, my favorite is the Electrovoice RE20. Again, this is not a cheap one, but if you're doing a lot of voiceover or podcasting or maybe Google Hangouts on Air type things where you just need a voiceover mic and it's okay for it to be in the scene, the Electrovoice RE20 is a classic. It sounds fantastic on most people's voices. Its main competitor, from what I know, is the Shure SM7B, which is also very good. I've been very happy with the Electrovoice, no regrets. It's about a $450 US microphone, and it needs a audio interface or a recorder with a fair bit of gain because it is a dynamic microphone, but it just sounds fantastic. Now, if you're on a tighter budget and you need something like that, there are a couple of things. The Audio-Technica AT4053b, which we reviewed a while back, is a good one. There's an very similar one from Audio-Technica called the ATR 2100, which is very popular amongst podcasters. Those are both in the $50 to $100 range-ish. Those can actually sound very good. And there's also always the classic Shure SM58, which is about $100 US. All of those, if you're going to use them into an audio interface or recorder with an XLR input, require a fair bit of gain. So you've got to also look at the price that you're going to spend on that audio interface to support that mic. So this was something a little different. We've never done anything quite like this before. If you found this helpful, go ahead and give us a thumbs up down below. And if you've got any questions, go ahead and leave those down below as well. If you've not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon.